everyone. Today I'm going to be counting down my top 10 favorite episodes of the first 1.5 seasons of Gravity Falls. Now, as I mentioned in my first Gravity Falls theory video, Gravity Falls is a fantastic show with excellent mystery and story. Now, the first thing I want to make clear is that these are not the top 10 episodes of Gravity Falls. They're only my top 10. So if you have a different opinion, leave it in the comments below and I'll take a look at what others' top 10s are. I've seen a few other top 10s of Gravity Falls on YouTube and thought it might be a good idea to experiment with this concept of a top 10, as it's becoming a very popular concept for YouTube videos about TV shows. In the future, I also plan to do one for another one of my favorite shows, Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, for which I haven't really seen others' top 10s for. Now let's jump right into the best of the best. I'm assuming, by the way, that everyone watching has seen the series because there will be spoilers. And I'm not really going to summarize the episodes that much. Mostly I will talk about what made them good episodes. Hopefully people will agree with some of the lists. Number 10, The Inconveniencing. What really stood out to me about this episode, next to it probably being one of the funniest episodes of the series at the time it came out, was how the concept of growing up was explored and was a huge theme in this episode, which, by the way, is one of the biggest themes in the series for Dipper and Mabel, the main characters. The episode really shows Dipper's hurry to grow up while Mabel just wants to be herself and for things to stay the same forever. They really are on opposite sides of the spectrum, and you can really see that in this episode. The introduction to Wendy's teenage friends was great, and the episode just really has a fun feel to it, leading up to the ghost attack at the end. It's also the first episode where we see Wendy as a main character and get to know how kind and supportive she is to Dipper and Mabel. It makes her a likable character, and her decision at the end to not tell her friends about the Lammy Lammy dance was very well done. You can also see Dipper make the right decision at the end to tell the ghost he's not a teenager, and that is something I will get into more in a bit. How I noticed that at the end, that every episode of this series is leading up to a decision, which makes it all the more powerful and interesting to watch. The episode in particular was also a fun homage to 80s horror movies, and I loved it enough to put it on this list. It starts the Dipper has a crush on Wendy story arc, and it serves its purpose of being a heavily character-driven episode. Number 9, Into the Bunker. Being one of the darkest, most mysterious, and plot-driven episodes of the series, this episode makes number 9. Mabel and Seuss are great comic relief in this episode, but the primary focus is on the relationship between Dipper and Wendy. Going on an epic adventure can make people understand each other better, and Dipper being forced to tell Wendy his feelings was really well done in this episode. A lot of sitcoms make it dumb or awkward, but this felt very real to me. We finally get a better grip on Wendy as a character and just how understanding she is. Even after being friend-zoned, Dipper realizes that he has gotten to know Wendy better, and even though she's too old for him, they still are able to maintain a little brother-big sister relationship that most viewers enjoy, as these are two very likable characters. I actually liked Dipper and Wendy as characters a lot more after I saw this episode. As far as the mystery, it's clear at this point that things are getting deeper and darker, and the foreshadowing about the author and the fact that someone has been down there recently was haunting. Even the boxes of supplies labeled for 50 years in the future to come was haunting. Number 8, Double Dipper. Ah, the clone episode. Another one that heavily deals with characters, especially Dipper's crush on Wendy. You can tell this episode was really well thought out. The writing in this episode just seemed like it was well thought out for this to be a gem of an episode. While Dipper makes mistakes in this episode, I think it's all part of an interesting trial and error type learning process for him. And honestly, as much as I love him as a character, it can be fun to see these characters make a few mistakes here and there so they can learn from them in amusing ways that are fun to watch. The symbolism of this episode is also great, which may be why this is such a beloved episode among the fandom. Dipper creates the clones for a systematic plan, and they eventually turn against him and get in his way of being normal in front of Wendy. This symbolizes how people can essentially get in their own way through overanalyzing situations. It's a fun way to convey this message, but it also marks an important part of Dipper's character development, where he realizes being himself isn't always such a bad thing. For me, taking this simple concept and adding magic and fun just made it a great episode to watch. Also, we got to see Candy and Brenda for the first time, and it's great to see Mabel with her people. Number 7, Northwest Mansion Noir. Even without Wendy, Seuss, or Grunkle Stan, this episode manages to be one of the best. There are so many great themes in this episode to go over, so for the sake of this list, I'll focus on the plot involving Dipper and Pacifica. Pacifica had already started to turn around and become a better person following the events of the Gulf War, but she really proved herself in the epic climax of this episode. Now, leading up to the reveal that the Northwest had scammed everyone and were using Dipper to avoid ghostly justice, the episode was very exciting and creepy, which was very fun to watch as you really didn't know where it was headed. When Dipper caught the ghost early, I just knew a clever plot twist was coming, and boy did it deliver. From the sympathy of the ghost story to the heartfelt scene where Dipper talks to Pacifica, the episode was quite a ride and even took me by surprise at some points. But my favorite part, I have to say, was when Pacifica finally disobeys her cruel parents for the good of everyone and opens the gate. I almost teared up when the lights of the open mansion poured onto the townsfolk and Tyler the cute biker yelled, "Get it! Get it!" It was somehow that comic relief mixed in with the fact that we knew what this meant. Pacifica was the one who rose above and made the right choice, even against the will of her parents, and saved the day. Number 6. Scaryoke. Now to start getting into the secrets of Grunkle Stan and the complexity of his characters, one of my favorite aspects of the show. From the epic beginning that carried over from the season 1 finale cliffhanger to the entrance of the government agents, this episode made for one heck of a season 2 opener. The government agents coming in was a great way to symbolize that not everything is fun and games in Gravity Falls, and I think this was a great hint that things were getting serious as far as the overarching mystery. The music and the dark vibe when they drove up was a reminder that they don't mess around. It was also great to see Grunkle Stan sneak down to his secret lair during the party, and his line about how Dipper's stubbornness was like his as he stared at his reflection in journal number 1 was haunting and priceless. We could tell Stan might be heading in the direction of being a bad guy, or at least an anti-hero, but when he saves Dipper and Mabel from the zombies in an epic fight scene, you can't help but start to like this guy. If you didn't before, the Taking Over Midnight song was a symbolism of how close their family bond has become, and also an unfortunate reminder that things may come apart again. Finally, I think this episode shows very well that despite whatever Grunkle Stan is hiding, he loves Dipper and Mabel very much. Number 5, Gideon Rises. To be honest, this episode is mainly this high on the list due to the incredible payoff of the plot twist at the very end of the episode, but I'll get to that in a bit. Gideon Rises is the archetype of a scenario in many movies where the bad guy wins, the characters give up, and it seems all hope is lost. But the episode is so much more than just that. Grunkle Stan shows how much he cares about Dipper and Mabel by giving up any chance that they might have of beating Gideon to keep them safe. During the bus scene, even though the viewer pretty much knows that the show has to continue and all that, the characters really feel the pain of the fact that there is absolutely nothing they can do, and that feeling is displayed very well. You can really put yourself in their shoes and think about how sad they must be that their fantastic experience in Gravity Falls may be ending prematurely. The lead up to Dipper's heroic leap of faith towards Gideon's giant robot and the follow-through really shows what a hero his character is, with or without his journal. It's a great message to show that a person is a person and it doesn't depend on what items or accessories are in their possession. They are themselves. And finally, the payoff from the very first episode when we saw Grunkle Stan go behind the vending machine is great here and sent chills down my spine, especially with the music. The reveal that he was the one with journal number 1 the whole time is more than satisfying conclusion to the season. Number 4, Dreamscapers. Before I get into my favorite part of the episode, I want to talk a bit about Seuss because he's one of my favorite characters due to his ultimate kindness towards everyone, and I feel I haven't mentioned him enough thus far. Despite the fact that this isn't a completely Seuss-centric episode, he does have some very good moments, like when he wants to believe that Grunkle Stan loves him like a son. This is especially powerful when you later learn what the story was with Seuss's own father in the events of Blendin's game. Now, the introduction to the series' primary antagonist thus far was very climactic, and we learned so many little secrets and Easter eggs within Stan's mind. For me, though, the most important storyline in this episode was Dipper's relationship to Stan. From the misunderstanding when Dipper thinks that Stan may want to get rid of him, to the actual reveal of what Stan meant by that, and the depth added on when Stan's past was revealed. To me, the fact that Grunkle Stan sees himself in Dipper and wants to toughen him up was very heartfelt to me and made for a great moment in the series. Number 3, Sock Opera. The only other episode with Bill Cipher in it so far takes number 3 on my list, mostly because of Dipper's sacrifices for his sister start to paying off. Deep down, the number 1 theme explored in this series is Dipper and Mabel's twin sibling relationship, and this episode is a huge payoff to the character development we've seen between them. Dipper continues trying to help Mabel with her sock puppet show in the hopes that they can be more of the mystery twins, but when Mabel doesn't fulfill her promise, it puts Dipper in a dangerous and difficult situation. Mabel, though, ultimately makes the heroic decision by the end and lets her show be ruined in order to save Dipper from Bill Cipher. This is why I love the climaxes of the show so much. They feature a character having to choose between two things that are important to them, and they ultimately make the right choice in the end. When characters are put in these interesting positions, like with Mabel up against Bill Cipher, it is so satisfying to see them use their heart to do what's right. This episode had one of the best of these situations next to Pacifica's decision in Northwest Mansion Mystery, and one decision I will get to in a later pick. The fact that this was a turning point for Mabel becoming more understanding of Dipper despite her boy-crazy phase is very profound. She even says that she should have cared more about Dipper's needs than obsessing over a dumb guy. Although, I must say, another reason this episode was so high on my list is because sock opera was one of the single greatest things I think I've ever seen Mabel do as far as her creative side goes. Number 2, Society of the Blind Eye. There are so many things to like about this episode, from the song Straight Blanchin', I actually think it's catchy unlike Wendy, to the plot developments for both characters like Mabel and Old Man McGucket. Of course, the mystery tops all in this episode, as we finally get really close to discovering the author. First, I want to talk about Mabel. Her little talk at the end about how it's better to learn from the bad things is such a true statement that Mabel deserves a medal for that. As Wendy puts it, it's some mature junk. And you really felt for Old Man McGucket as she was saying that. It shows how far she's come from being too optimistic that now she has a broader perspective. As for the reveal at the end with McGucket's memories, it was not only chilling, but as I watched it again, I realized how sad it was. We don't know what horrible thing McGucket saw, but we do know what happened afterward, and it is sad because it symbolizes addiction, which can really destroy a person, and we see this deterioration on screen. That's pretty bold of the creators. And at the end with Grunkle Stan, you can tell that there is a bunch of foreshadowing when he says, "No one's gonna get in my way," and the screen pans to Dipper and Mabel's picture, which brings me to number 1. Number 1, Not What He Seems. I'm sure most people could see this coming on my list. Not What He Seems is number 1, and for good reason. With all the action, drama, and heartfelt moments packed into one episode, this is quite possibly the single greatest half hour of animation I have ever seen. The foreshadowing throughout the episode leading up to the findings about Stan Pines was so edge-of-the-seat entertaining that I really wondered what kind of person Grunkle Stan really was. And it's hard because he's such a likable character, but you really don't know enough about him to say for sure yet. I gasped when I saw the Stan Pines dead article and thought he might have actually murdered the real Stan Pines until I realized it could have been a staged death to take over his brother's identity. But before I knew about the brother, I was really worried that this character we've come to love may in fact be a really scary and dangerous criminal. When the choice finally fell to Mabel about whether to push the button or not, I was with Dipper and actually thought she would push it, and it was the right thing to do. We all know now, though, of course, how wrong I was about that. At that exact moment, when I saw the gravity go back to normal and everyone was fine, I realized that Grunkle Stan may be, at least somewhat, a good guy after all. And I think that's the hope Mabel had, that she wanted to see the best in her great uncle. This must have been a crazy hard decision for Mabel, and it's moments like this when you realize how incredibly real and hooking one cartoon can be. Mabel, of course, made the right decision, and now after 30 long years, the author of the journals is back home, safe and sound. So what did you think of my lists? Let me know how you feel about my analysis of the episodes in the comments below, and tell me if you think I missed anything that would have been crucial to making these 10 episodes a success. New episode coming in about a month. I may even do a reaction to it, as it seems to be hyped up a lot. Well, that's it for now. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.